There's perhaps not a more difficult subject to talk about with a loved one than death, yours or theirs. But healthcare providers and families who have found themselves in the middle of medical crises will tell you, not knowing what medical treatment your loved one wants and doesn't want at the end of life, or not sharing your own wishes, can have heartbreaking, physically painful, and yes, costly consequences.
The discussions themselves are hard to begin.
Dr. Heidi Wareheim is a hospitalist, a generalist at Thomas Memorial Hospital in South Charleston.
Do you think that, on a whole, physicians, healthcare providers might shy away from that uncomfortable conversation?
Yeah, who wants to say, I can't help you? A lot of people are just uncomfortable about death in general. And to bring up the subject of death-related decisions and end of life, and I always say the last chapter of your book, it's, are we on the first page of the last chapter, middle page, the end? It's all debatable, but it's very uncomfortable, and we're not taught that in medical training. You are taught to just push forward to the end and not accept something that's just a natural process. We're taught how to rejoice at birth, but we're not taught how to make the end of life, maybe not a rejoiceful moment, but a peaceful and happy and dignified moment.
Wareheim says that's when she relies on the trust that is developed between her and her patient.
Particularly as a provider, I know the patient well enough that I can say, I love seeing you, I love taking care of you, but this isn't the best for you, that you are at the end of this disease that we can't cure, and present the other options of like long-term hospice care, in the home, in a nursing home, things like that. That's an ideal situation when there's a relationship with the patient and the family, and we can look at where we're at with the disease and make plans from there so they don't have to spend their time in the hospital and getting poked in multiple tests, and everybody has a chance to come to grips with it.
Hey Cheryl, did you find that one test I was looking for?
I did. It's been granted.
Okay, so it's already...
Dr. Bruce Foster is a family practice physician and chair of ethics and investigational studies at Thomas Memorial.
Where ethics comes into end-of-life care is it's all communication. You learn to talk, you learn to speak English, you kind of jump ahead of what you think what they need to know. My dying people, and typically wives outlive husbands, they know that this process is going to happen. They know that there may be this bloody mess. They know that this is what we kind of expect.
Because you've prepared them.
Yeah. And frequently, and when they come in and they come to their cancer, they come back from their oncologist, I don't say, well, how was your oncologist? I say, how was your visit to your cancer doctor? Okay, the cancer on your x-ray is not really getting smaller. I don't pussyfoot around. I use the nasty words, okay? And the wives frequently come up and say, that made me uncomfortable at the time, but I'm glad I knew.
Foster agrees there's an important component of medical training still missing when it comes to end-of-life care.
Doctors know medicine, they know the science, but they don't know how to speak English. What's mom's test? Oh, the ejection fraction's 14%. To the doctor, that's a fatal number. You have to say your heart's not squishing very well and your mom is dying. Many doctors don't know how to tell bad news. They'll kind of hem and haw. You'll see reports all the time, patient deteriorating, prognosis poor. No, the guy's dying. And by not telling people that they're dying, you rob them of a stage of their life that can be exquisite.
When I met you,
Yes.
you explained things, can I say it, down to earth?
Uh-huh.
We don't have to be able to have a dictionary beside us. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm glad that you don't need a dictionary.
Because my daughter went to school and she'd say, Mom, help me with all the vocabulary. Of course, you know that speaking, the words of the physician.
Yes.
But you broke it down. You gave us time, my family, to voice how they felt, what they expected, and you clarified.
Uh-huh.
And you demonstrated in your kindness that we knew, I don't want to use it in a wrong way, but a two-face. In other words, you laid it down honestly and openly she expressed much, and she let my children voice how they felt, and then they gave me understanding about the CPR.
Yes.
And it took a while, and after they expressed, Mom, this, how we feel, this what we can expect, and I got calm, and I said, okay, Lord, and I let him take it off, that you will let him go peacefully, and that's the best way.
Good. All right, well, I'm glad that the conversation was helpful and that...
Oh, if it was...
When directives have not been documented and wishes are unknown, a medical emergency can tear a family apart.
Something traumatic happens or a catastrophic illness, end up in the intensive care unit, on a ventilator, can't speak for themselves, multiple family members, and it doesn't matter if this person is 20 or if this person's 90, it's the same thing. And we don't know who makes the decisions. You know, they haven't talked about which of the siblings is going to make the decisions. They have no idea what mom or dad or grandma would want. And then a lot of times you'll see internal disagreements within families.
Well, what do you do in that situation?
Mediate. I can't, my job is to mediate, to give information of where that person is physically, and then mediate decisions, sit with them and let them talk. And it's not easy, and that's not the time to be making the decisions. This is something that should have been made sitting at the dinner table with your family members when life is good and happy and you don't have the fear of the loss of someone.
Whenever I see a new patient, I bring up advance directives at the very first visit. So it's a continuing conversation. Okay, so now that we've actually finished your exam, there's just a couple other things I want to talk about.
Sure.
Okay. I understand you were really sick in Louisiana.
Most definitely I was, yes.
You were on a respirator for...
I was on about 37 days in a coma in ICU on a respirator.
You know, what I want you to really understand is that I don't want you doing what I tell you, okay?
Okay,
I want
right.
it to make sense to you,
Sure,
okay?
right.
And you... I'm not the one in charge. You have the right to say yes. You have the right to say no. You have the right to say I want to do it and I don't want to do it.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, sure.
How can we empower the patient and family to get the information? It is not that difficult. It's really actually very easy. All you have to do is have 5 questions answered. And in words that you understand, not medical jargon. What's wrong with me? What are you offering me? What are the risks and benefits? What are the alternatives? And what if I do nothing? If I know those 5 things, I can make a good decision. That's essentially the elements of informed consent. Now, the only problem we've got is there might be a time when you can't tell people. Do you have a medical power of attorney?
At the present time I do, but I didn't.
You didn't back then?
Back in Louisiana, yeah, I should have, but I didn't have it.
The medical power of attorney form is the most important thing that you need. Okay,
Yes.
so you have somebody that you trust to speak your voice.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't wake up and you had to go through all that again, have you ever thought about what you want to do?
Yes, I would definitely.
What I really recommend to sons and daughters, wives, relatives, is whatever question you feel uncomfortable asking, that's the one you probably want to ask. Okay. Oh, I don't want to get mom upset. Mom's dying. She is already upset. She needs to have someone to talk to. Okay. Oh, but I don't want to get my children upset. No, the truth is what people need. So talk early, talk often, talk frequently. If I was king of the world, what I'd have happen, let's say you're at a family reunion. And you go, hey, Tom, are you still going down to Myrtle Beach to that condo in September? Hey, Grandma, you still don't want that respirator if you can't be fixed? Just put it out there and make it part of the conversation. It would help demystify it. Okay. End-of-life things are scary. We don't know what it's all about. And that's okay.
Is there any change in her condition?
Not really.
When it comes to making those end-of-life decisions, medical providers say society often has unrealistic expectations of heroic measures, like CPR, breathing machines, and feeding tubes.
We love medical shows. I mean, just as a nation, we think they are great and they're so super interesting, and they're often so far from the truth. I wish Dr. House was at every hospital, and I wish that ER situations went as well as they did when ER was on. But I think we do get a false sense that if my doctor does the CPR and does the chest compressions and gives me all this medicine and puts a tube down my throat, I'm going to come out of it and I'm going to be 100% normal and everything's going to be okay. And that's not the case.
We probably have more research on CPR and when it works and when it doesn't work than probably any other healthcare procedure or treatment. We know, for example, when somebody's having a heart attack, they're having their first heart attack and they've previously been healthy, that person has a 50-50 chance of benefiting from CPR and leaving the hospital and doing pretty well. Or if somebody has a drug overdose, they've overdosed on a drug and they're in the emergency department and they stop breathing, they have a 25 to 50% chance of being fully recovered and receiving further treatment, but CPR is likely to work in that situation. Or if somebody has, their heart stops in the operating room. Again, 70-80% chance that they're going to do well with the CPR and that they're going to be able to carry on with their life. On the other hand, if you take all people who have their heart stops in the hospital and they receive CPR, only 1 in 6 survive to leave the hospital.
The majority of people who arrest have an underlying or multiple underlying issues that, because of the lack of oxygen, because of the lack of blood flow, because of the breaking of the bones, it just compounds an issue a lot of the time. And, the general public, we're not exposed to what happens during a resuscitatory effort. And it's a very difficult thing for a person's body to go through. And especially when you're an elderly and frail and you don't have a lot of muscle mass, you have thin bones, you already don't have a lot of blood flow to your brain. The sequelae, or what comes afterwards, is just sometimes worse than what we started with.
If there's nothing in writing that says don't do the heroic things such as CPR, life support, and if, say, a mother has a terminal illness such as pancreatic cancer, maybe it's spread to the liver, a feeding tube is not going to change the outcome. A life support is not going to change that outcome. Or if it's lung cancer and there is no further treatment, you place someone on life support, does it change the fact that they have the terminal illness? No. A lot of times it's the terminal illness that causes them not to be able to breathe or not to be able to eat. So you have to look at, is this what they would want? I mean, we can offer a lot of things and we can do a lot of things to people, but are we really doing it for them?
The cost of end-of-life care in intensive care units like this one at Ruby Memorial Hospital in Morgantown can be staggering. For treatment many healthcare providers say is often unwarranted, painful, even inappropriate. Defensive medicine, ordering procedures that may not be strictly necessary, but done in fear of medical malpractice suits, adds to the skyrocketing healthcare expenditures. Providers believe this could be curbed with greater use of advance directives. Medicare alone currently reports paying close to $67 billion a year on chronically ill patients in the last 24 months of life.
Something like half of that is spent in the last 2 months of life. We put lots of people on machines in intensive care units at the end of life, when if we would have had the conversation that I just described with you, 3/4 of those people most likely wouldn't be there. And so we could save millions and millions of dollars, billions probably. I like to say it's a win-win type of thing. The patient gets the treatment that he or she wants, and we don't spend all the money that we can't afford to be spending. The baby boomers are coming, okay? The demographics are against us, but yet we need to have the conversations so that we can stop using the intensive care unit as a surrogate for providing end-of-life care.